here they are.
Yep, so we're about to see the dice roll. This could be actually quite important. We've already seen with the runic variant of the crystals just how important their first end field can be. And we also know what Blue Eyes can present with their first end field. So it's going to be quite interesting to see who gets to go first, who sees what, and kind of what they're presented with.
Rio rolled a 9, so pretty good. Let's see if it was enough. It was, and we start things off with the best opener in deck, as we've seen in the previous Crystron Future match, which is this 3-star Ross.
Yeah, and then it looks like we've activated the incursion, which has been instantly met with the Ash Blossom. We're going to be able to destroy the incursion to bring down the Sulphur Deer. This is obviously one of the ideal plays. Usually you'd want to use your incursion to work you into the Sulphur Deer, but then being able to already hard open up a copy of the Sulphur Deer will still give you that ability to continue to combo. And that's quite a similar feel to the way that Blue Eyes is. What I mean by that is Blue Eyes have a lot of cards that will lead one into the other, into the next. And that's exactly what the Crystrons can do as well. So it's a very similar strategy from building on top of each other. And then, of course, they also do work their ways into quite a few synchro plays. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this develops. And now that we have a monster on the field as well, we've got the Tristanos that could also react should another hand trap be utilized for Lily against Rio with this one. So we're going to be banishing the Smyger from the graveyard. This is going to grab access to what looked like a trap card, so I can only imagine it's Crystron Cluster. We still have the first Wyvern in the graveyard as well that could be utilized should we need to. But it looks like we're going to be making a Synchro Summon straight away with the Skeletos, and this will allow to recycle from the graveyard.
I'm trying to take a look at what Lily could be holding. I mean, no, she does have quite a few interruptions in the main deck, actually. It does look also quite different from the build that Andre was using in round 1, so...
Yeah, just from a very short sneak peek at the hand, it does look like there's possibly an Effect Veiler. We definitely know there is a Sage with Eyes of Blue in there as well, and then 2 unknown spell cards. So that provides a guaranteed another form of interruption, but then also we know there is a guaranteed combo starter in the form of the Sage with Eyes of Blue, which is a very interesting interaction point for the Blue Eye strategy, because as much as you want to stop them getting access to another level 1 Light Tuner, which could ultimately be either Maiden, you also want to make sure you try and save any form of interaction for the Link Monster or, of course, Mausoleum. So working our way into 2 Sulfonirs. So this is a little bit different from the previous build we saw, which was only running one of those. So that's the big difference. When you have a little bit more space to utilize more of the Crystron cards, it allows you to utilize more of the Sulfonirs themselves. And straight away, as mentioned previously, you can see when there are 2 level 5 machine monsters on the field, you can see that they're probably going to be working their way into a Nova and then an Infinity. And that is one thing I still haven't seen resolve, which would be very, very interesting to see, is that when you make your way into a Nova, should you get interacted with a Nibiru, you can also spawn out an invoked Macabre, which has actually been quite an interesting tech option that I haven't seen many people utilize, but that is a very interesting or very specific form of interaction to go with that one. So we just go straight into the FA Dawn Dragster, setting up a Spell Negate, which can actually be very, very effective against the Wishes, and then kind of work its way around there. I can imagine Rio is going to try and put more monsters on the field, being able to discard a Smyger to revive what looks like the Sulfonir. The Sulfonir obviously comes back and then destroys itself, which then allows to summon 2 more. This is how we're going to walk into the 3rd Sulfonir, and then ideally move into the Nova Infinity, backed up with an FA Dawn Dragster. And you probably still have the ability of Incursion, and of course the first Wyvern to add the Tristanos back to the hand, and ultimately end up getting it to the field, which looks like we're just going to be skipping past the first Wyvern play, get the Tristanos to the field, and that's still going to be very, very important, because this is going to allow us to end the field with a Nova plus Infinity and a Dawn Dragster, and then of course the Tristanos, and we already know that the Crystron cluster was also searched. The only thing that it doesn't have is a Crystron Synchro monster, so maybe Rio may wait for an interaction where Tristanos can then provide that Crystron the additional Crystron Synchro monster on the field, and that will then provide with 2 destructions rather than 1.
Yeah, and what an opener it is indeed from Rio. Now Lily will reveal her deck to the opponent.
So starting off with the Maiden in White, this is actually quite an interesting interaction point as well, because getting access to the True Light, being the fact that it places it face up in the spell and trap zone as well, means it can instantly be activated that turn, and that can very easily work its way either to board extension by bringing back a Blue Eyes, or of course it can add to the combos by being able to set a Blue Eyes spell or trap directly from the deck. Ideally, the first one you want to go for will be Wishes, as that will lead you into another starter, and it looks like it's going to be responded with the Crystron cluster, not even letting True Light sit around for very long. One very important thing to remember as well about True Light is it has this clause that if it leaves the field and goes specifically to the graveyard, it will destroy all monsters you control. But as Lily didn't have any monsters, there was nothing to be destroyed at that point. So it's very interesting to see where we move on from here. So we're going into Sage with Eyes of Blue. This will, of course, try to search out a level 1 Light Tuner. The fact that we've already used Maiden, either you open up the door for an additional normal summon that you might use something like Master with Eyes of Blue, but quite possibly it can also search out an Effect Veiler for a guaranteed interaction. And it looks like that's going to be met with the Cyber Dragon Infinity.
Yeah, not wasting any time around. Seems like he's not super familiar with the Blue Eyes deck, given he's read one of the key cards, but yeah, sometimes that's enough, and yeah, it is. I mean, it's something we see from time to time when a player is not familiar with it. They're pretty good going first regardless. And we also have one copy of Skill Drain.
Ooh, very interesting.
That could be a good one.
Yeah, taking it back to the good old basics of Blue Eyes Beatdown.
Let's see whether that will be the case. I see a lot of spell and traps.
Yeah, starting off with Lordy Load, which is probably one of the better spells you can definitely be starting with. What I really like about this is the direct access to a starter in the form of the Primite Beryl. Beryl then in turn leading you to a negation and a banish in the form of the Drill Beam. And if that wasn't enough, it can then work its way into the Blue Eye strategy. As we saw previously, though, with round 1, you do need to be able to combo this off with access to something like either your Maiden or your Sage of Eyes of Blue in order to access the Blue Eyes lines. And it looks like a Fluoros is going to be utilized right here, right now. This isn't going to be the end-all, be-all. I still feel that you could be very comfortable. Ooh, Ash Blossom. That is a very interesting approach on this one. Definitely want to be able to get access to the Link one. Just to grab hold of the Mausoleum, maybe there is a access. One of those spells could very easily be Wishes, and that could very easily work its way into a Sage. But it looks like there is a Roar of the Blue-Eyed in the hand, 2 trap cards. One of them I could possibly see was the Dominus Pulse, and then another trap card that looks like an Imperm. Yeah. So we know there's a Drill Beam. I suppose it's very important to try and get Blue Eyes into rotation here. So being able to utilize the Mausoleum will allow you to send a Blue Eyes from deck to the graveyard, increasing the attack of the Spirit. And then if you actually sequence this correctly, you could tribute off the Blue Eyes Link monster to get a Blue Eyes White Dragon onto the field, which then opens up the door for Roar of the Blue-Eyed, not only to get you access to a Blue Eyes White Dragon, but because you already control Blue Eyes White Dragon, it can then open up the door to get you a Blue Eyes Jet Dragon. And we've already seen that that can be very useful in a grind state, but also open up the door for more Synchro play, more XYZ plays if you wish to go down that route. So being able to try and maintain either access to a Primite monster or, of course, a normal monster in the form of Blue Eyes can be very pivotal to make sure that the Drill Beam is still active and utilized, especially when it comes to your opponent's turn, because having a Drill Beam is all well and good, but if you don't have the materials to either reveal or have on the field to utilize it and actually put its effects to full use, you're not really going to be able to put it as much of a threat as you would like. So working our ways into the Hieratic Seals here, so we already know that this is going to give a non-target return from the field to the hand, and then utilizing the Roar of the Blue Eyes, it's going to allow us to bring the Blue Eyes White Dragon back for the graveyard. Very interesting choosing not to bring that from the deck. Maybe we're going to see the second effect of Lordy Load, or is that a pass?
Doesn't look like it.
I find it very interesting to leave the Blue Eyes in the deck. Maybe there is a use for that later on in the duel. We've got one set Spell and Trap alongside the Drill Beam, the Lordy Load, and then of course we do have the ability of activating the Hieratic Seals. We did see Andre previously in round 1 use the Hieratic Seals to return the Lordy Load back to the hand, so that could very well be a strategy to return that ability to activate it again and then work its way into the Primite Beryl. So we're now cutting up Lily's deck and moving over to Rio's turn. So Rio is going to be drawing for turn on this one, and it looks like he's drawn the Perulia Meowis. Very interesting option on that one. Still pretty good going second, because obviously if True Light is face up on the field, you know that there's going to be 2 monsters possibly coming back from the graveyard off of that. So that could be a very interesting option. And it can really kind of hold your opponent back a bit if he was to start his turn by activating that card. If there was a True Light face up on the field, of course, that would definitely make Lily think twice before using True Light to revive a Blue Eyes and ultimately a Maiden from the grave as well. It also looks like you might have hard opened up the Incursion, which can be very good to get the combo pieces started. But then if the Hieratic Seals is chained to this, we all know that continuous spells won't be able to resolve and it may return back to the hand. But it's definitely one way to deal with Seals, which can be a very interesting obstacle to try and navigate around. And that's where it is instantly used.
Yeah, indeed. We open with this inclusion, and prompts this response. Are we going to use anything? Nope, doesn't seem like it. So Lily will get to special summon Dragon, and that's why, I guess, he didn't go for it. Just wanted to use it this way around, but I mean, you lose on some attack points, I guess.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see just quickly if there are any other dragon targets in the deck to be utilised. I think you could have used, I would like to think that there was another Primate Barrel
so
possibly. But Lily wouldn't be here with a 6-1 record with not knowing what to be doing. So there's probably something that we're not seeing that makes this definitely stand out. We already know, or from what I can see in Rio's hand, he's definitely opened up multiple incursions. We already know that there is a Meowis in there. We do know there is a Schmeiger, which can be very easily normal summoned, and then in turn sent to the graveyard by going into a Link one that has also come out recently, which is the Clockwork Knight, which is very, very good for the strategy of the Cristrons, being able to put instantly your normal summon of Schmeiger into the graveyard to gain access. So there's definitely 2 incursions. It looks like there's another spell card there. So there's the normal summon of the Schmeiger. This might prompt some interaction from Lily. It's not really doing anything on the field, and you don't really want to put it in the graveyard for Rio. If anything, you want to make sure it goes back to the hand or gets banished, or even back to the deck.
But no response at the moment, so we can go for that Clockwork.
Ooh, are we using the Schmeiger effect? We are.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting choice on this one. So obviously Schmeiger has 2 effects, but you can only use one of those effects per turn. But this is going to get direct access to the Tristanos. Usually you try to save the effect on field of Schmeiger because you usually want to be able to banish it from the graveyard to get the incursion. But the fact that we already have that is very, very helpful.
And then we're going to go and set just one face down Speller Trap. And passed. It seems like he motioned just passing over.
Yeah, being ended on a Tristanos isn't the worst thing about this, but what you do need to remember is you've got the Drill Beam is going to react to deal with the Tristanos. Could have also, the other downside to that is the Primate Barrel is going to be coming back to the hand during the standby phase of Lily's turn, and it looks like there's an imperm in retaliation or in response to Tristanos attempting to use his effect. So not only do we go Chain Link 1 Drill Beam, Chain Link 2 Tristanos, Chain Link 3 is going to be Infinite Impermanence, which ultimately would mean that Tristanos leaves the field, leaving Rio with just 1 card along his spell and trap zones. Facing down 2 Blue Eyes White Dragons, but remember one of them has been summoned off the back of the Hieratic Seals, so its current attack stats are 0/0. We also know that the Primate Barrel is going to be coming back from the graveyard to the hand, so a normal summon of that will allow us to regain access to another Primate card, ultimately looping back the Primate Drill Beam from the grave.
Yeah, here comes once more this Primate engine, just so much synergy with the Blue Eyes cards, and yeah, the advantage just seems to go over the roof. You're going to banish the Roar. Rio.
Yep, so being able to banish the Roar will actually hard fusion summon into what I can only imagine will be the Tyrant Dragon. And what I absolutely love about the Tyrant Dragon is the fact that it can recycle any trap card from the graveyard. So you mentioning Summoning Strike earlier, being able to activate Summoning Strike and then recycle it and use it again is obviously going to be an amazing strategy.
Yeah, and Rio, you can see him smiling a lot. You can tell he's not too familiar with these cards, but I mean, gonna try his best to maneuver through. And worst case scenario, I mean, he is 1-0, so he knows that he can try to replicate the same opening as he did in game 1, and hopefully it's gonna take him there.
Yeah, as it currently sits, there is obviously 1 spell or trap along Rio's zones that you can utilize. And I believe, as a cheeky suspicion, it could very well be a Forbidden Droplet. That might stop the recycle of possibly an Infinite Impermanence off of the Tyrant if it is so, and mitigate the damage a little bit, giving him a bit more of a fighting chance, as we do know that Incursion is going to be coming back online during his turn. Ooh, okay. Lily is choosing to activate Pot of Prosperity. Not so much sacrificing, but definitely passing the priority of doing maximum damage here. And that's going to be able to allow her to search through the deck a little bit more off of those top 3 or possibly top 6 cards. But when you're looking for very simple access to something like a Maiden, ideally, or a Wishes of Eyes of Blue, either of those cards could be very, very good to allow you to add more disruption to the field.
Just going to be a free. Let's see.
Yeah, I feel with this current field state, 3 would be more than enough. Imperm, there's the Maiden. Oh,
No,
went for a full
6.
6.
Wow.
Very interesting.
Willing to take any risks whatsoever. I mean,
honestly, I would probably take the Maiden just because it strikes as good as it may be. I feel that Maiden can let you add a little bit more. Obviously, Lily chooses to take the strike, which is absolutely fine as well.
It's fine, yeah. I mean, it's a very simplified game state. You have control of the field, and maybe you don't want to take any unnecessary risk, play too much into your opponent interruptions, and just play it safe.
Yeah,
I guess. I still would have liked, maybe the attack to come down before the prosperity, but okay. In this case, we're just gonna hit the droplet, which is gonna make this pretty much a fourth of the damage that it would have been.
I think it's going to be somewhere along the lines of 600 damage. I believe it is a 3400 base.
85.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah, 850.
So not as devastating as it could have been, but we still know, now that we've seen Forbidden Droplet send an incursion, there's 2 more cards left in Rio's hand. Lily may feel that the first incursion that was returned to the hand was utilized. On the other benefit of this as well, it does leave Rio's field empty. So if he does get to a position where the Meowth may come up, we could be utilizing it. But I feel the best use for that against the Blue Eyes strategy will, of course, be anytime Blue Eyes is revived, and Maiden will soon follow. And there we go. There's the exact Meowth. Very interesting choice to do it here. Having a look to see what we have in the graveyard. So there we go. We're reviving the Blue Eyes White Dragon from the graveyard off of the back of the Lordy Load, which guarantees Rio will get 1 draw at the very least. Setting 2 more along the spell and trap zones, one of them being Solemn Strike that we know, and then one of them unknown, as I believe the Drill Beam was previously set. But that still gives a lot of interaction on Lily's field for Rio to try and navigate around, especially when you're looking at 2 Blue Eyes White Dragons that both have a 2500 defense stats. Makes it a little bit aggressive to kind of need to deal with that, plus the Drill Beam and the Strike. So there's a lot of effects in the graveyard still with Schmeiger and, of course, Incursion. Ooh.
The Dominus Purge.
Very, very effective use of the Dominus Purge there.
Yep.
As far as Lily knows, we don't know there is a second incursion coming.
Ooh. Fairy is nice, but the strike is just there.
Correct.
If you want, you can just use it right away.
Ooh, going for the Drill Beam.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so Drill Beam dealing with the Fenrir. We still... he's trying to protect that incursion very, very well.
Did he banish it? Okay. Yeah. Perfect.
So the incursion, I don't believe, can do anything just yet, depending on what Rio's hand is. I still believe there is a second incursion in Rio's hand, so we can probably see that to be activated. He's seen both of the unknown spells and traps being used, or one of them being known, being the Drill Beam. So he can take a very educated guess at this strike along the back as well.
Totally. But, I mean, it's not really reassuring that that's there. It's kind of tough to find a way to maneuver through it.
Yeah, I feel this is the one downside that the Christians have, is that, yes, of course, you could normal summon down one monster and try and turn it into a Typhon. That instantly gets met by the Solemn Strike. There's not really a Link 1 that really does put pressure on your opponent's field to allow you to then save the graveyard effects. But we'll soon see how Rio decides to pilot this. With 24 minutes left on the clock, there's plenty of time for to fill this one out and then even work his way into game 3 should he need it. But Lily's field is very, very impressive right now. And like you said, still sitting on that Solemn Strike can be massively damaging depending on what else Rio may have access to.
Okay, we are now revealing everything that we got. Yeah, you really don't want to mess this up, and we are going to use the strike on the effect right away from end.
Yeah, so this will pretty much leave Rio with nothing left apart from the incursion in the graveyard and the Sulfur. So this is still going to be allowed, provide the ability to try and rebuild a field.
Yeah. Was it too preemptive, or what do you think, this Solemn Strike?
Quite possibly, but letting the Sulfur hit the field is still quite damaging as well. I feel the Sulfur can still present a slight bit of an issue on its own. Kind of put it in a bit of a board state or a field state where you probably didn't want either to resolve, and you were probably hoping that there wasn't going to be much more. But to have the Sulfur in the hand, access to any of the other Christians that he would like to send from deck to the grave as well, can still allow the board to be a bit more presented. The one biggest thing you need to keep an eye on as well is if Rio is able to navigate himself into an Over and then to an Infinity, that Tyrant Dragon being left into attack does open itself up to being absorbed by the Infinity. and then that should give it enough attack stats to deal with one of the Blue Eyes White Dragons.
Yeah, and as you can see here, we are not stopping at all. We set up the clustering graveyard, and we're finally accessing a synchro summon for this game. True.
Yeah, so this is actually really well done because you're going to be able to add back the Crystron cluster. And then, of course, you've got the skeleton on the field, no longer on the field. But if he is able to even navigate himself into another Crystron Synchro monster, he'll get 2 destructions off of the back of the Crystron cluster. But as you can see as well, we've also got 2 level 5 machines, which will work its way into possibly a Nova and Infinity eventually. And having the Tristanos back onto the field then opens up the door for either access to a FA Dawn Dragstar or a second Skeletos, which then opens up that if you go Nova, Infinity, Absorb Tyrant, and then you work your way into your opponent's turn. The one thing you need to be careful of is if they don't activate an effect, they should have enough attack stats with a Blue Eyes to either deal with the Tristanos or the Infinity. No one wants to be leaving a Cyber Dragon Infinity on the field, especially if you need to switch one of your monsters to attack position in order to deal with it.
The only thing I don't remember if is one of the Blue Eyes still the one from the Hieratic seal or not?
No, that was fused off to make the
yeah, I hope so, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully they just clarified it, then it should be good to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we do absorb this Tyrant. And
currently putting Infinity on 2900 attack, I believe. So this is also very important because now we have access to a Crystron Synchro monster. The cluster becomes a Pop 2 or a Destroy 2.
Wow.
Being able to kill both those Blue Eyes is insane, and there is still a Tristanos and a cluster.
What a turn.
Wow.
What a turn around by Rio, honestly.
Yeah.
It looked as if there was no hope, and he managed to deal with 3 different interruptions this turn, and yeah, just clear the field, set up his own. Wow. Let's see. Really a back and forth one. We can get back the Prima. Do we have anything?
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. At the very least, we have the barrel coming back from the graveyard. This can then lead the ability to kind of loop back the drill beam again. But as soon as something is activated, that Tristanos can, of course, trigger. And if there is enough level 5s left in Rio's deck, it can work its way into the Dawn Dragstar, meaning that the drill beam isn't as effective as you might first feel. Also have Infinity that can deal with the barrel. And as previously mentioned with the Sage of Eyes of Blue, you want to make sure that your normal monster does not stay on the field. If you're able to stop that from happening on a Blue Eyes player, they really will struggle. Even though Mausoleum is still active, they still will be able to, still makes it a little bit more awkward for them to build their plays. And there we go. There comes the Crystron cluster, which will be allowed to deal with 2 cards because there is a Crystron Synchro monster on the field. And then we still have the Infinity to deal with the barrel as well. Ooh, second Lordy load.
Interesting, though. I think she's holding only the Primate, right? That
Correct.
She just got back.
Yeah. So the Lordy load at the most will be able to attempt to search out another card. Ooh, very interesting.
They're going to negate it. Yeah, seems like that was declared indeed.
Very, very interesting to negate that. I suppose because it would search out the drill beam directly, but then you could also negate the drill beam. So normal summon the barrel. Is now the time for Tristanos?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do we have a target? That's the big
So
question.
2 Sulfonirs in the graveyard. 2
seems like Rio
Sulfadors.
believes he does.
There should be at least 1.
Do we have it?
Ooh, okay. Going for the Smiger
Interesting.
play for a level 5 synchro. Axel Synchro.
Wow, okay. Different route, but yeah.
There's definitely one way of working its way into it. We can even go to a higher level. Are we going to go for something a bit more?
Yeah, that's quite...
Yeah, there we go. Ooh, Centurion. This will
Wow.
allow the barrel to be destroyed and then draw 1 more card off of the back of that. And then Infinity is currently on 27, I believe. It was on 29, and then obviously had to detach to negate. So you've got 35, and that's it. Lily offers up the handshake.
Yes.